Everybody, it's me again. Let's talk about your assignments. So you have several major assignments in the course, but almost all of your assignments, excluding your weekly posts and discussions and engagements on the weekly discussion board, every other assignment you have, which includes a community speech, a division speech, and an action speech paper, as well as an annotated bibliography, all stems from one basic choice. You are doing each of these assignments with the exclusion of the weekly writing assignments, but every other assignment is about one community of your choosing. And the step works like this. In the first speech, your community speech, you are introducing the various aspects of that community to your audience via a public speech, which is 4 to 6 minutes. You are answering for your audience, who is this group of people? What makes them stand out? What makes them different from other communities? What are the kinds of things that really unite them together, whether it's a style of dress or whether it's a belief system or whether they have rituals and songs they sing, secret handshakes, common media publications they read, those sorts of ideas. Right? Then the second speech, so the first speech you've said what unites this group of people, what brings them together. The second speech, the division speech, is where you tell the audience, what are they fighting about? What is the one thing that really divides this group of people? And then in that speech, you sketch both sides of the argument. You say, my chosen group of people are obviously a community, but that doesn't mean they're immune from having arguments with one another. And this is the one issue that they're arguing about. One side says X, one side says Y. That second speech is designed to be a neutral, objective speech where you don't take a position and you just sketch for the audience an argument that your community, your chosen community, is having amongst itself, and try to be as clear as you can and thorough and fair as you can in detailing both sides of the case. The third assignment is actually where you persuasively argue both sides of the case. Ancient Greek rhetoricians, people who were teaching people how to effectively engage audiences 2,000 years ago, called this assignment a dissoi logoi. And this is essentially what is taught in law schools across America, which is how you effectively and persuasively argue both sides of a case. So in your last big capstone assignment for the course, which is due on the last day of class, which is July 1st, you will argue both sides of the case persuasively. So the second speech, you set up neutrally, fairly, both sides of the case. X argues this side, Y argues that side. And in the final assignment, your paper, you choose one side and argue persuasively that that is the correct side. And you pick for your speech the other side, and you argue persuasively that that is the right side. But it all stems from making a good topic selection choice at the beginning, which is picking a community that you're interested in, that you think you can research for the course of an entire course, over the course of a full month, and a community that for sure is divided by at least one or more controversies. So how do you make this choice? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. I would choose based on my interests if I were doing this assignment. So one way I could do this is to pick a community of people that I'm a part of. I live in Charleston. I've lived in Charleston for 11 years now, and I could do a very good, I think, first speech on what makes a Charlestonian a Charlestonian. Sort of a, you know you live in Charleston if kind of a speech, and then constructing a series of main points around things that you really only see in Charleston. It's not like many of us get stuck in traffic behind horse and buggies when we're in Atlanta or when we're in Charlotte or when we're in virtually any other southern city, but that's a very Charleston thing to do. And you can also imagine lots of other things that are very Charleston specific that I might use to populate that speech, which is about what makes Charlestonians a real community that's different from even people who live in Columbia or Myrtle Beach or Charlotte or something like that. Second speech. What divides Charlestonians? Well, I could pick two issues. I could pick one issue, which would be the horse and buggies. There's lots of local activism against the use of horses, people saying it's cruel. Charlestonians have come out in full force against that, but then lots of people also enjoy that part of the city's tourism and industry. There's a second issue that's also dividing local Charlestonians, and that is the cruise ship traffic. Right? Lots of people really like tourist dollars. They really like that people are coming to see the city and enjoy the city, and it brings a sense of livelihood and vibrancy to the city to have cruise ships come through. Other people think it's an eyesore. Other people think it's a pollutant. Other people think it cheapens the tourism experience because people come in for 6 hours and then they leave. So there's clearly two sides to that question. So in that second speech, I might just have one side, half the speech be on why people support locals support tourism traffic via cruise ships. Then the second side, take the contrary position. And then in the third assignment, I would try to explore both of those persuasively. Offer a persuasive paper for cruise ships and offer a persuasive speech against cruise ships. Another example, let's say I'm politically inclined and hypothetically I'm a libertarian, right? I'm a member of the Libertarian Party. My first speech would sketch out what a membership in the Libertarian Party really means, what unites libertarians together, what are the kind of beliefs and practices and media they read that really separate them from Republicans or Democrats or whoever else is politically involved in the United States. In the second speech, I could take on, well, we've already covered what unites libertarians, what divides them? And I could find a central issue, let's say the minimum wage or some policy issue that has divided libertarians, from the radical libertarians who want zero government involvement to more middle-of-the-road libertarians who want the government to protect private markets and such. I could also, I'm a huge football fan. I could choose my community based on football, right? I could choose college football fans, and then I could, in my first speech, sketch a tailgate, hypothetically. I went to Georgia, so I'm familiar with what a tailgate in the South looks like, and I could sketch it. What are the colors looking like? What do the songs look like? What are people grilling on the barbecue? What are people doing before the game, during the game, and after the game, as to show college football fans as a community, as a united community around common experiences of a sport. And secondly, what are dividing them? For my division speech, I could talk about college football fans not knowing what to do about the ongoing concussion crisis. Right? Some people say we need to completely change the game, get rid of kickoffs, perhaps change the way that players are tackling each other, and make other sorts of amendments to the rule structure to make the game safer. Other people say no, people are joining this game, they know it's violent, we shouldn't change a game that millions and millions and millions of people enjoy, right? So that would be my two sides. Change the game because of concussions, don't change the game because of concussions. And then in my final action speech paper, I would persuasively argue one side of the case and persuasively argue both sides of the case. In general, I think if you want to really make a good choice, you need to make sure that your community is big enough to research and that your community is clearly divided by at least one controversy that you can also research effectively. And you can do this in a few ways. You can pick communities by interest, right? The activities, like you could pick hunters, you can pick surfers. I've had students in the past pick ballet dancers and other kinds of dancers. You can pick interest groups based on religion, right? I've had students effectively do Presbyterians and Muslims and all sorts of different world religions. I've also had people pick by profession, right? They've picked a profession that they would like to become, a profession that they would like to research, or a profession that one of their parents or loved ones or friends practices, right? So I've had people pick neurologists, and they have spent their first speech talking about what a neurologist does, and the second speech, what are neurologists arguing over, and then finally exploring both of those more thoroughly in their final assignment. Lawyers has been a really good example. I have had students do special ed teachers and other kinds of specific teaching professions. So professions is a really good area. So interest groups, think about choosing that as an area to think about when you're thinking about what community you might like to choose. Think about professions. And then finally, think about geography. Geography is a really great one. You can choose people in a particular city, like the hypothetical Charleston example, or New Yorkers or Bostonians or people in LA. You can also pick people by state. Right? My spouse and I've lived in Minnesota for some time, and Minnesota would be a really good choice. People in South Carolina in general, it would be a really good choice, and lots of other states. Texans, I can imagine, Louisianians, or however you say that, Louisianans. And then finally, members of the same nation, right? The country, United States, Mexico, Canada, wherever else. So cities, localities, states, regions, Southerners, Midwesterners, Northeasterners, New Englanders, something like that. All of these are really great choices just to get the topic selection ball rolling. And feel free to reach out to me and consult with me if you have multiple ideas, or if you just want to run an idea about a community selection past me. Talk to you soon.